Jake Rodriguez never believed in aliens. He thought people who claimed to see UFOs were either lying or crazy. But that was before the night that changed everything. Jake worked at a radio telescope facility in the middle of nowhere, New Mexico. His job was pretty boring. He just had to watch computer screens and make sure all the equipment was working properly. Most nights, nothing interesting happened. He would drink coffee, read books, and wait for his shift to end. But on this particular Tuesday night in October, something was different. Around 2 a.m., his equipment started going crazy. The screens were lighting up with signals he had never seen before. At first, he thought maybe the equipment was broken. He tried turning it off and on again, but the strange signals kept coming. These weren't normal radio waves from space. Jake had been doing this job for 5 years, and he knew what regular cosmic signals looked like. These signals had patterns. They looked almost like someone was trying to send a message. Jake rubbed his eyes and looked closer at the screen. The signals were coming in short bursts, then long ones, then short ones again. It reminded him of Morse code, but not quite. He grabbed his notebook and started writing down the pattern. Then something really weird happened. When Jake adjusted the radio telescope to point in a different direction, the signals changed too. It was like whatever was sending them was watching and responding to what he was doing. His heart started beating faster. "This is impossible," he whispered to himself. Jake had always been a logical guy. He studied electronics in college and believed in science. But what he was seeing on his screens didn't make sense according to anything he had learned. He decided to try an experiment. He deliberately changed the frequency on his equipment 3 times in a row. Then he waited. Sure enough, the alien. Signals changed their pattern 3 times too, like they were copying him. Jake's hands started shaking. For the next 2 hours, Jake played this strange game with whoever or whatever was out there. Every time he made a change, the signals would respond. It felt like he was having a conversation, but not with words. It was like talking through math and patterns. By 4 a.m., Jake was exhausted, but also more excited than he had ever been in his life. He was the first person in human history to have a real conversation with aliens. But then, suddenly, all the signals stopped. The room went completely quiet except for the humming of the computers. Jake stared at his screens, hoping the signals would come back. He waited for 10 minutes, then 20, then an hour. Nothing. Just as Jake was starting to think he had imagined. The whole thing. The room filled with the brightest light he had ever seen. It was so bright that he couldn't see anything else. He tried to cover his eyes, but the light seemed to come from everywhere at once. Jake felt a strange tingling sensation all over his body, like when your foot falls asleep but everywhere at once. He tried to move but couldn't. He tried to call out, but no sound came from his mouth. Then everything went black. When Jake woke up, he was still in the control room, but he wasn't alone. Standing in front of him was the most incredible being he had ever seen. She was tall, maybe 8 feet, and her skin looked like it was made of crystal that glowed with a soft blue light. Her eyes were large and kind, but also ancient and wise. Jake tried to speak, but before he could say anything, he heard a voice in his head. It wasn't his own thoughts. It was definitely someone else talking to him, but not with words. The voice was feminine and carried both power and sadness. "Do not be afraid, Jake Rodriguez," the voice said inside his mind. "I am what you would call the queen of my people. I have been watching your communication attempts with great interest." Jake's mouth fell open. This was really happening. He was talking to an alien queen, and somehow she knew his name. "I have come to you because I need your help," the queen continued. "My daughter has been living on your planet for several months as part of a learning exchange between our worlds, but something has gone wrong." Jake found his voice. "Your daughter is here? On Earth?" "Yes. Her name is Zara, and she has been studying your people and your culture. But the electromagnetic fields around your planet have interfered with her ability to return home. She is trapped here." The queen's crystal-like form seemed to dim slightly, and Jake could feel her worry and pain, even though she was speaking directly into his mind. I have been searching for someone who could help her. Someone who has proven they can communicate across the barriers between our species. You have shown this ability tonight. Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. But I'm just a technician. I watch radio equipment. I don't know anything about aliens or space travel or... You know more than you realize, the Queen interrupted. Your mind was able to understand and respond to our communication patterns. This is very rare among your people. Most humans cannot make this connection. Jake sat down heavily in his chair. His whole world was turning upside down. Just a few hours ago, his biggest worry was whether he had enough coffee to get through his shift. Now, an alien queen was asking him to help her daughter. What exactly do you want me to do? He asked. The queen moved closer, and Jake could see his reflection in her crystal-like skin. Zara has been living alone, pretending to be human, but she is struggling. She doesn't understand many aspects of your culture, and she is becoming weak because she cannot get the proper nutrition she needs. She needs someone to live with her, to help her, and to protect her while we find a way to bring her home. Live with her, like roommates? Yes, though it will not be easy. Zara is very different from humans, even though she can appear to look like one of you. She has different needs, different ways of thinking, and she is from a world very unlike yours. Jake ran his hands through his hair. This was crazy, completely insane. But as he looked at the Queen, he could see the desperation in her ancient eyes. She was a mother worried about her child, even if that child was an alien princess. Why me? Jake asked. There must be scientists or government people who would be better at this. Scientists and government officials would want to study her, test her, perhaps even harm her. You have shown tonight that you can communicate with us without fear or aggression. You approached our signals with curiosity, not hostility. This tells me you have the kind of mind and heart that my daughter needs. Jake thought about his life. He lived alone in a small apartment. He had no girlfriend, no close friends, and his family lived across the country. His days were routine and predictable. Maybe helping an alien wasn't the craziest thing that could happen to him. Maybe it was exactly what his boring life needed. If I say yes, what happens? How do I even find her? The Queen's glow seemed to brighten a little. She is living in the city, about an hour from here. I will give you her address and the means to contact her. She knows that I have been searching for someone to help her, but she does not know about you yet. And if I say no? The Queen was quiet for a moment. Then my daughter may die alone on your world, never able to return home or see her family again. Jake closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, he looked directly at the alien queen. Okay, I'll do it. I'll help your daughter. The Queen's entire form seemed to pulse with relief and gratitude. Thank you, Jake Rodriguez. You may be saving not just my daughter's life, but the future relationship between our two worlds. She reached out her hand, and Jake noticed her fingers were longer than human fingers and seemed to be made of the same crystal material as the rest of her. When he touched her hand, he felt a warm, tingling sensation, and suddenly his mind was filled with information, an address, a phone number, and images of a young woman with dark hair and unusual bright eyes. That is Zara, as she appears in her human form, the Queen explained. Go to her tomorrow evening. Tell her that her mother sent you. She will understand. Wait, Jake said as the Queen began to fade. How will I contact you if something goes wrong? You will know how when the time comes, her voice echoed in his mind as she disappeared completely. Jake found himself alone in the control room again. For a moment, he wondered if he had fallen asleep and dreamed the whole thing. But then he looked at his notebook, where he had written down all those signal patterns. The evidence was right there in his own handwriting. His life as a boring radio technician was over. Tomorrow, he would meet an alien princess, and somehow he would have to figure out how to help her survive on Earth while her people found a way to bring her home. Jake looked out the window at the desert sunrise and realized that everything he thought he knew about the universe had just changed forever. The next evening, Jake stood outside apartment building 47B holding a piece of paper with an address written in his own handwriting. His hands were shaking slightly. What was he supposed to say to an alien princess? "Hi, your mom sent me" seemed pretty weird, even for this situation. He climbed the stairs to apartment 3C and knocked on the door. When it opened, Jake's breath caught in his throat. The young woman standing there looked completely human, but her eyes were the most unusual shade of silver blue he had ever seen. They seemed to almost glow in the hallway light. "You must be Jake," she said in perfect English, but her voice had a strange musical quality to it. "My mother told me you would come. Please come inside." Jake stepped into the apartment and immediately noticed how different everything felt. The air seemed to shimmer slightly, and there was a faint humming sound he couldn't identify. The apartment itself looked normal enough, but something felt off about the whole place. "I am Zara," she said, closing the door behind him. "Thank you for agreeing to help me. I know this must be very strange for you." "Strange is definitely one word for it," Jake replied, trying to act normal even though his heart was racing. "So you're really from another planet?" Zara smiled, and when she did, Jake noticed her teeth were just a little too perfect and white. "Yes, I am from a world you would call Kepler 442b, though we have a different name for it. I have been living here for 4 months now, trying to learn about human culture." "And how's that going?" Jake asked, sitting down on her couch. "It is challenging," Zara admitted. "Humans are much more complicated than we expected. Your emotions are so strong and change so quickly, and your social rules are very confusing." Over the next few days, Jake began to understand just how challenging it really was. Living with Zara was like sharing an apartment with someone from a completely different universe, which, he reminded himself, was exactly what he was doing. The first shock came at breakfast time. Jake had brought groceries and was making scrambled eggs when he noticed Zara wasn't eating anything. "Aren't you hungry?" he asked. "I do not eat food the way you do," Zara explained. She walked over to the window and stood in the morning sunlight. As Jake watched in amazement, her skin began to absorb the light, literally glowing like she was some kind of human solar panel. "You're photosynthesizing," Jake said, remembering his high school biology class. "Yes, but I also need minerals." Zara opened a cabinet and pulled out a bottle of what looked like vitamin pills. But when she poured them into her hand, Jake saw they were actually small pieces of copper and iron. "You eat metal?" he asked, trying not to sound grossed out. "It provides the elements my body needs," Zara said, crunching down on a piece of copper, like it was a potato chip. "Is this disturbing to you?" Jake shook his head. "Just different. I'm still getting used to all of this." But the food situation was just the beginning. Zara's sleep schedule was completely different from humans. She stayed awake for about 20 hours, then slept for 11. This meant that every day their schedules shifted, and Jake found himself constantly tired trying to keep up. Even stranger was the way Zara moved around the apartment. When she thought Jake wasn't looking, she would float a few inches off the ground instead of walking. The first time Jake caught her doing this, he nearly dropped his coffee mug. "Earth's gravity is much stronger than what I am used to," she explained when he asked about it. "Walking on the ground all the time makes me feel very heavy and tired." "So you can just fly?" "Not exactly fly, but I can reduce the effect of gravity on my body. It is a natural ability for my people." Jake sat down heavily on the couch. "This is going to take some getting used to." The real problems started when they went out in public together. Zara's understanding of human social behavior was very limited, and she often did things that drew unwanted attention. At the grocery store, She became fascinated by the automatic doors and spent 10 minutes walking back and forth through them, giggling like a child. When other shoppers started staring, Jake had to convince her to stop by telling her it was considered rude. In the checkout line, Zara saw an elderly man struggling to reach his wallet and immediately offered to pay for his groceries. When the man politely declined, she couldn't understand why someone would refuse help they obviously needed. On my world, if someone needs something and you can provide it, you simply do, she explained to Jake later. This concept of minding your own business makes no sense to me. But the most dangerous incident happened during their second week together. Jake came home from work to find Zara sitting on the floor surrounded by the broken pieces of his grandmother's antique vase. "I am so sorry," she said, looking genuinely upset. "I accidentally knocked it over while I was floating, and it broke into many pieces." Jake's heart sank. That vase had been in his family for 3 generations. But before he could say anything, Zara placed her hands over the broken pieces and closed her eyes. Jake watched in amazement as the pieces began to move on their own, fitting back together perfectly. Within minutes, the vase was completely restored, looking exactly as it had before it broke. "How did you do that?" Jake whispered. "I can manipulate matter at the molecular level," Zara said simply. "It is not difficult once you understand how atoms connect to each other." "That's incredible. You could revolutionize medicine or engineering or—" "Which is exactly why I must be careful," Zara interrupted. "If your people knew what I could do, they would never let me return home. They would want to study me, test me, use my abilities for their own purposes." Jake realized she was right. The wrong people learning about Zara's powers could be very dangerous for both of them. The close calls with Discovery became more frequent. Mrs. Patterson, the elderly woman who lived next door, was getting suspicious about the strange sounds and lights coming from Jake's apartment. She had already knocked on the door twice asking if everything was okay. "I told her we were watching science fiction movies," Jake explained to Zara, "but I don't think she believed me. Perhaps I should meet her and put her mind at ease," Zara suggested. "No!" Jake said quickly. "Trust me, meeting you would not put her mind at ease." Then there was the incident with the delivery guy. Jake had ordered Chinese food, and when the young man arrived, Zara answered the door. She had never seen Chinese takeout before and became so excited that she accidentally started glowing. "Whoa, lady, are you okay?" the delivery guy asked, staring at her softly glowing skin. "You look kind of bright." "She has a rare skin condition," Jake said quickly, appearing behind Zara and taking the food. "It's nothing contagious." After the delivery guy left, Jake sat Zara down for a serious talk. "You have to be more careful. If people figure out what you really are, it could be bad for both of us." "I am trying," Zara said, and Jake could hear the frustration in her voice. "But pretending to be human is exhausting. I have to think about every move I make, every word I say. On my world, I could be myself without fear." Jake felt a pang of sympathy for her. He couldn't imagine how hard it must be to hide your true nature every single day. "I know it's difficult, but we just have to be extra careful until your mother finds a way to get you home." But as the weeks passed, Jake began to notice something troubling. Zara was becoming weaker. She spent more time in the sunlight, needed more minerals, and seemed tired more often. "Are you feeling okay?" he asked one morning when she had trouble lifting a coffee mug. "I am adapting," she said carefully. "Living on Earth for so long is changing my biology in ways I did not expect." "Is that dangerous?" Zara was quiet for a moment. "I do not know. This has never happened before. No one from my world has ever stayed on another planet for this long." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What if they couldn't find a way to get Zara home? What if living on Earth was slowly making her sick? Despite all the challenges and close calls, Jake found himself enjoying Zara's company more than he had expected. She was curious about everything, asked interesting questions, and had a completely different perspective on human life that often made him think about things in new ways. "Why do humans work jobs they do not enjoy?" she asked one evening while they were watching television. "Because we need money to live," Jake replied. "But if no one did jobs they did not enjoy, would those jobs not simply disappear? And would that not make everyone happier?" Jake thought about it. "I guess. But society wouldn't function that way." "Why not?" Zara asked. "On my world, people only do work that brings them satisfaction and helps others. We have found that happy. People are much more productive." Conversations like this happened every day, and Jake began to realize that maybe humans had gotten some things wrong about how to live, but the most surprising thing was how much he was starting to care about Zara as a person. She wasn't just an alien he was helping anymore, she was becoming a friend, and the thought of her eventually leaving Earth to go back to her own world was starting to make him sad. Late at night, when Zara was sleeping her strange 11-hour sleep, Jake would lie awake wondering what would happen when this was all over. Would he go back to his boring job at the radio telescope? Would life ever feel normal again after living with someone who could manipulate matter and float through the air? 3 months into their strange living arrangement, Jake realized his life had completely changed, not just because he was living with an alien, but because Zara was changing the way he saw everything around him. It started with small things. One morning, Jake was complaining about his job while eating breakfast. "I hate going to work," he grumbled. "Same boring routine every day, watching screens for 8 hours." Zara looked up from where she was absorbing sunlight by the window. "Then why do you continue doing it?" "Because I need the money to pay rent and buy food," Jake said, like it was obvious. "But what if you did something that made you happy instead? Something that helped other people?" Jake laughed. "That's not how the real world works, Zara. People don't just get to do whatever makes them happy." "Why not?" she asked seriously. "On my world, everyone contributes what they are best at and passionate about. We found that when people love their work, they do it much better." Jake stopped chewing his toast. He had never really thought about it that way before. "What did you do on your world?" Zara's eyes lit up. "I studied music and art from different cultures across the galaxy. My job was to find ways that art could help people from different worlds understand each other better." "That sounds amazing," Jake said quietly. It was. But I learned more about art and creativity in my 3 months here than in all my years of study at home. This surprised Jake. "Really? How?" "Because humans create art from pain, from struggle, from hope. On my world, we have eliminated most suffering, so our art is beautiful, but—" She paused, looking for the right word. "Empty. Human art has soul, because it comes from real experience." Jake had never thought of human suffering as something that could create beauty, but as he looked around his apartment, he noticed things differently. The guitar in the corner that he never played anymore, the sketchbook he had abandoned when he decided art wasn't practical. Maybe Zara was right about humans getting some things wrong. Over the following weeks, their conversations got deeper. Zara would ask questions that made Jake really think about his life choices. "Why do humans own so many things they do not use?" she asked one day while looking at Jake's closet full of clothes he rarely wore. "I guess we like having options," Jake replied. "But would you not be happier with fewer better things that you truly loved?" Jake looked at his overflowing closet and realized she was right. Half of his clothes still had tags on them. "Why do humans spend so much time watching other people live imaginary lives on television instead of living their own lives more fully?" she asked another day. Jake didn't have a good answer for that one either. But it wasn't just Jake who was changing. Zara was transforming too, and in ways that surprised both of them. She had started learning to play Jake's guitar, and the music she created was unlike anything he had ever heard. Her alien physiology allowed her to create sounds that human fingers couldn't make. She could somehow make the guitar strings vibrate at multiple frequencies at once, creating harmonies that seemed to come from inside the instrument itself. "This is incredible," Jake said the first time he heard her play. "You could be famous?" "Music should not be about fame," Zara replied. "It should be about connection. When I play, I feel connected to your world in a way I never expected." Zara had also started painting, but not with regular paints. She could somehow extract pigments from soil, plants, and even rocks, creating colors that didn't exist in any art store. Her paintings showed landscapes from her home world, and they were so beautiful they made Jake's chest ache with a longing for places he had never seen. "Your world looks amazing," he said, staring at a painting of purple mountains under twin suns. "It is beautiful," Zara agreed, "but it lacks the wild diversity of Earth. Every sunrise here is different. Every season brings new colors. On my world, everything is perfectly planned and controlled. Here, nature is chaotic and surprising. Do you miss it? Your home?" Zara was quiet for a long moment. "I miss my family, but I am beginning to understand why some of my people choose to never return from their travels to other worlds." This admission worried Jake more than he wanted to admit. Not because he didn't want Zara to be happy, but because he was starting to care about her in ways that complicated everything. It wasn't just friendship anymore. Somewhere along the way, watching her discover human music, seeing her laugh at silly TV shows, helping her understand Earth customs, Jake had developed feelings that went far beyond wanting to help a stranded alien. The problem was, he didn't know if Zara could feel the same way. Did her species even experience romantic love? Was it possible for a human and an alien to have that kind of connection? Jake tried to push these thoughts away, but they kept coming back stronger each day. The situation became more complicated when the alien queen started contacting them more frequently. Her visits were always the same. A bright light would fill the room, and then her crystal-like form would appear, speaking directly into their minds. "The interference blocking your return is growing stronger," she told Zara during one visit. "My scientists are working to find a solution, but the political situation at home is becoming difficult." "What kind of political situation?" Jake asked. "There are those among my people who believe that cultural exchanges with other worlds are dangerous. They think exposure to alien ideas and emotions corrupts our pure way of thinking." Jake felt a chill. "What does that mean for Zara? If they gain power, they may declare that any of our people who have been away too long are no longer welcome to return. They would be considered contaminated." Zara's face went pale. "How long do I have?" "I do not know. But you must be prepared for the possibility that you may need to choose between returning home soon, before we solve the interference problem, or staying on Earth permanently." After the queen left, Zara sat on the couch in silence for a long time. Jake didn't know what to say. How do you comfort someone who might be facing exile from their entire world? "Are you okay?" he finally asked. "I do not know," Zara admitted. 3 months ago, the choice would have been easy. I would have done anything to get home. But now what? Now I have experienced things I never knew existed. I have felt emotions my people suppress. I have created art that comes from the heart instead of just the mind. I have learned what it means to worry about another person's happiness more than your own." Jake's heart skipped a beat. Was she talking about him? "The person you care about," Jake said carefully. "Do they know how you feel?" Zara looked directly at him, and in her silver blue eyes, Jake saw something that made his breath catch. "I think he is beginning to understand." Before Jake could respond, his phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. "Hello?" He answered. "Mr. Rodriguez? This is Dr. Chen from the New Mexico Institute of Technology. I'm calling about some unusual electromagnetic readings we've been detecting in your area." We'd like to schedule a time to come investigate. Jake's blood went cold. I'm sorry. I think you have the wrong person. I don't know anything about electromagnetic readings. Sir, our equipment shows the source is definitely coming from your apartment building. We just want to do a quick scan to make sure there's no danger to the residents. Jake hung up the phone with shaking hands. Who was that? Zara asked. Scientists. They're detecting the energy signatures from your mother's visits. They want to investigate. Zara stood up, her face serious. This is what I was afraid of. If they discover me, everything changes. Not just for us, but for both our worlds. What do we do? We have 3 choices, Zara said. I can try to return home immediately, even though the journey might be impossible. I can run and hide somewhere else on Earth. Or what? Or we find a way to make the scientists go away and hope my mother finds a solution before the political situation at home gets worse. Jake looked at Zara, this incredible being who had changed his entire perspective on life, who had become more important to him than he ever imagined possible. The thought of losing her, whether to her home world or to government scientists, was unbearable. There's a 4th option, Jake said. What's that? We face this together. Whatever happens, we don't run, and we don't give up. We find a way to make this work. Zara smiled, and for the first time since her mother's visit, she looked hopeful. Together? Together, Jake confirmed. But even as he said it, Jake wondered if they were strong enough to face what was coming. Scientists asking questions was just the beginning. If the wrong people learned about Zara, if her own people decided she was too contaminated to return home, if the growing feelings between them complicated everything even more, Jake pushed the worries aside. For now, all that mattered was that they were facing the unknown together. Whatever came next, he wouldn't let Zara face it alone. 2 days after the phone call from Dr. Chen, Jake was a nervous wreck. He kept looking out the window, expecting to see government vans or scientists with strange equipment. Zara noticed his anxiety and tried to reassure him. Perhaps they will. Lose interest and investigate somewhere else, she suggested while practicing guitar by the window. I don't think we're that lucky, Jake replied, pacing around the living room. He was right. That afternoon, there was a knock at the door. Jake's heart jumped into his throat as he looked through the peephole. A woman in a white lab coat stood outside, holding some kind of electronic device that was beeping steadily. Quick! Go to the bedroom and try to suppress your energy as much as possible, Jake whispered to Zara. I will try, but I cannot control all of it, she whispered back before disappearing down the hallway. Jake took a deep breath and opened the door. Can I help you? Hello, I'm Dr. Rodriguez from the Institute, the woman said with a friendly smile. I called yesterday about the electromagnetic readings. This will just take a few minutes. Jake noticed she had the same last name as him, which felt like a weird coincidence. I'm sorry, but this really isn't a good time. The readings are definitely coming from this apartment, Dr. Rodriguez interrupted, looking at her device. In fact, they're stronger now than they were yesterday. Is anyone else home? Before Jake could answer, the device in her hands started beeping frantically. Dr. Rodriguez's eyes widened as she looked at the display. This is impossible, she muttered. These readings, they're not from any technology I know. Jake felt sweat forming on his forehead. Maybe your equipment is broken? Dr. Rodriguez looked up at him with sharp, intelligent eyes. Mr. Rodriguez, I think we need to have an honest conversation. May I come in? Something in her tone made Jake realize that lying wasn't going to work anymore. Against his better judgment, he stepped aside and let her enter. Dr. Rodriguez walked into the living room, her device beeping constantly. She examined the walls, the furniture, even the air itself seemed to interest her. Then she stopped and looked directly at Jake. How long have you been protecting her? She asked quietly. Jake's mouth fell open. I don't know what you're talking about. The energy signature is biological, not technological. It's coming from a living being whose cellular structure is unlike anything on Earth. So I'll ask again, how long have you been protecting her? Jake sank down onto the couch, defeated. 4 months. And where is she now? Before Jake could answer, Zara appeared in the doorway. She had dropped her human disguise, and her skin was glowing softly with its natural crystal-like appearance. I am here, Zara said simply. Please do not harm Jake. He was only trying to help me. Instead of looking shocked or afraid, Dr. Rodriguez smiled. Finally, I've been looking for you for weeks. You have? Jake asked, confused. Mr. Rodriguez, I'm not just any scientist. I work for a very special government program that has been preparing for contact with other worlds for the past 30 years. My job is to protect visitors like Zara, not study them like lab animals. Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. You're saying the government knows about aliens? A small part of it does. We've been quietly helping visitors from other worlds for decades. We provide safe houses, medical care when needed, and protection from those who would exploit them. Zara stepped closer, her glow dimming slightly. Why should we trust you? Dr. Rodriguez reached into her coat and pulled out a small device that looked like a crystal tablet. When she touched it, it began displaying symbols that Jake didn't recognize, but Zara clearly did. Because your mother asked me to find you, Dr. Rodriguez said. The room filled with the familiar bright light, and the alien queen materialized beside them. But this time she looked different, more tired, more worried than before. My daughter, the queen said, her voice echoing in their minds. I am afraid I have brought you terrible news. Jake felt his stomach drop. What's wrong? The hostile faction on my world has taken control of the government. They have issued a decree that any of our people who have been away from home for more than 4 Earth months are considered contaminated and are no longer welcome to return. Zara's glow flickered like a candle in the wind. But I have been here for exactly 4 months. The deadline passed yesterday, the queen said sadly. According to our new government, you are now considered an exile. The room went silent except for the humming of Dr. Rodriguez's equipment. Jake felt like he had been punched in the stomach. Zara was trapped on Earth forever, cut off from her family and her entire world. There has to be something we can do, Jake said desperately. There may be, the queen replied, but it would require Zara to make a choice that could change everything. What kind of choice? Zara asked. The queen moved closer to her daughter. Dr. Rodriguez's people have been working on a project for many years. They believe it might be possible to create a permanent communication bridge between our worlds, but it would require someone with your unique abilities to make it work. Dr. Rodriguez nodded. We've been studying the energy patterns that your people use for long-distance travel. We think we can create a stable portal, but we need someone who can manipulate matter at the molecular level to maintain the connection. That's what Zara can do, Jake said, remembering the incident with the broken vase. Exactly, Dr. Rodriguez confirmed. But creating this bridge would mean Zara could never leave Earth. Her energy would be permanently connected to the portal system. Zara was quiet for a long moment. And if I did this, what would happen? You would become the first official ambassador between our worlds, the queen explained. Instead of secret visits and hidden exchanges, we could begin true cooperation between our peoples. You would be saving not just yourself, but potentially both of our civilizations. But I would never see home again, Zara said softly. No, the queen admitted, but I could visit you here regularly, and perhaps in time. We could find a way to reverse the process. Jake looked at Zara, trying to imagine what this choice must feel like for her. Give up any hope of going home in order to bridge 2 worlds. It was an incredible responsibility for anyone, let alone someone who was barely more than a child by her people's standards. There's something else, Dr. Rodriguez said quietly. Something we discovered when we were studying the energy patterns around this apartment. What? Jake asked. The readings have been changing over the past month. The energy signature isn't just from Zara anymore. There's something new, something we've never seen before. The Queen's crystal form seemed to pulse with sudden interest. Show me. Dr. Rodriguez held up her device, and Jake watched as strange symbols and numbers flowed across the screen. The Queen examined them carefully, and then her form blazed with surprise. "This is impossible," the Queen whispered. "What is it?" Zara asked, moving closer to her mother. "My daughter, you are carrying a child." The room went completely silent. Jake felt like the world had stopped spinning. Zara stared at her mother in shock. "That's impossible," Zara said. "My people cannot reproduce outside of our home world. The conditions aren't right. Apparently, your extended exposure to Earth's environment and emotional experiences have triggered biological changes we did not think were possible," the Queen explained. "The child you carry is something entirely new, part of both worlds." Jake sat down heavily, his mind reeling. Zara was pregnant with his child, a human alien, hybrid that shouldn't have been possible. "This changes everything," Dr. Rodriguez said quietly. "This child could be the key to understanding how our species can coexist, or it could be seen as an abomination by both sides," the Queen added grimly. Zara placed her hands on her stomach, her glow intensifying. "I can feel it now that I know what to look for. The child is different. Its energy is unlike anything I have ever experienced." Jake found his voice. "Is this dangerous? For you, I mean?" "I do not know," Zara admitted. "No one knows because this has never happened before." The Queen moved closer to Jake. "This child will need protection from both of our worlds. There are those among my people who would see it as proof that contact with other species is corrupting. And there are humans who would want to study it as a scientific specimen." "So what do we do?" Jake asked. Dr. Rodriguez spoke up. "We have safe facilities where Zara could stay during the pregnancy, places where both she and the child would be protected." "But that would mean leaving Jake," Zara said, and Jake heard the pain in her voice. "Not necessarily," Dr. Rodriguez replied. "Jake has proven himself trustworthy. We could bring him into the program officially, train him to be Zara's liaison and protector." Jake looked at Zara, seeing the fear and hope warring in her silver-blue eyes. Everything had become so much more complicated, but also so much more important. It wasn't just about helping a stranded alien anymore. It was about protecting the future of two species and the child they had somehow created together. "Whatever you decide," Jake said to Zara, "we'll face it together. You, me, and—" he gestured toward her stomach. "Our child." Zara smiled, and her glow warmed the entire room. "Together," she agreed, but Jake knew that the hardest choices were still ahead of them. How do you raise a child that's half human and half alien? How do you protect something that could either unite two worlds or destroy them both? 6 weeks had passed since the shocking discovery that Zara was pregnant with Jake's child. They had moved to a secure facility run by Dr. Rodriguez's team, where Zara could receive proper medical care from doctors who understood both human and alien biology. The facility looked like a normal research center from the outside, but inside it was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. There were laboratories with equipment that seemed to be half human technology and half alien, rooms that could adjust their gravity and atmosphere, and medical scanners that could read energy patterns as easily as taking someone's temperature. Jake had been officially brought into the program as Zara's cultural liaison, which meant he got to stay with her throughout the pregnancy. But what amazed him most was learning how many other alien visitors had been quietly living on Earth for years. "There are 12 different species currently represented on your planet," Dr. Rodriguez explained during one of their briefings. "Most are researchers or cultural exchange students like Zara. We help them live safely among humans while they complete their missions. And nobody knows about this? Jake asked. Very few people. The program is kept small and secret to protect everyone involved, but keeping secrets became much harder when Zara's pregnancy started showing unusual signs. During a routine medical scan, Dr. Rodriguez made a discovery that changed everything. Jake, Zara, you need to see this, she said, staring at her computer screen with amazement. They gathered around the monitor, which showed what looked like a three-dimensional map of energy patterns. In the center was a small, pulsing light that seemed to be constantly shifting colors. What are we looking at? Jake asked. Your baby, Dr. Rodriguez replied. But look at these energy readings. The child isn't just part human and part alien. It's generating a completely new type of electromagnetic field. Zara leaned forward, studying the patterns. I have never seen anything like this, even on my home world. What does it mean? Jake asked. Dr. Rodriguez pulled up another screen, showing wave patterns and mathematical equations. We think the baby's unique biology is actually solving the interference problem that's been preventing Zara from returning home. How is that possible? The child's energy field seems to be naturally filtering and translating between Earth's electromagnetic environment and the frequencies your people use for space travel, Dr. Rodriguez explained to Zara. It's like having a universal translator, but for energy instead of language. The implications hit Jake like a lightning bolt. You're saying our baby could be the key to fixing the communication problems between the two worlds? More than that, Dr. Rodriguez said excitedly. If our calculations are correct, the child could serve as a living bridge between dimensions, a permanent connection that would allow safe travel and communication between Earth and Zara's home world. When the alien queen learned about this development during her next visit, her reaction surprised everyone. Instead of being excited about the possibility of bringing Zara home, she looked troubled. This is a great gift, but also a great burden to place on one so young, the queen said, her mental voice filled with concern. If my people learn what this child can do, there will be those who want to use the child for their own purposes. What kind of purposes? Jake asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. There are factions that believe we should expand our influence to other worlds, not just study them. They would see this child as a weapon that could open pathways to any planet we wished to reach. Jake felt a chill run through him. We won't let that happen. There are humans who would want the same thing, Dr. Rodriguez added grimly. If the wrong people in our government learned about the child's abilities, they might see it as a way to gain access to alien technology and worlds. The room fell silent as everyone realized the same thing. Their child would never be safe if its true abilities became widely known. But perhaps, the queen said slowly, there is another way. What do you mean? Zara asked. What if, instead of hiding the child's abilities, we use them to create something that benefits both our peoples? Equally? Dr. Rodriguez's eyes lit up with understanding. A permanent embassy, a place where both species could meet and work together. Exactly, the queen confirmed. If we establish an official first contact, with the child serving as the living bridge between our worlds, then both our governments would have a stake in protecting the child and its family. Jake looked at Zara, who was gently touching her growing belly. What do you think? I think, Zara said softly, that our child deserves to grow up in a world where being different is seen as a gift, not a danger. Over the next few months, the most incredible transformation began. Dr. Rodriguez's team worked with the alien queen to plan the first official contact between Earth and Zara's people. The child, still growing in Zara's womb, was already making it possible by stabilizing the electromagnetic interference that had prevented reliable communication. Jake found himself at the center of preparations for the most important moment in human history. He attended meetings with government officials, helped design protocols for first contact, and even learned some of the alien queen's language so he could serve as a translator. The most amazing part was watching Zara blossom during this time. Her pregnancy seemed to be making her stronger rather than weaker, and her abilities were growing too. She could now create matter from pure energy, paint with light itself, and play music that could be heard across dimensional barriers. "I feel like I am becoming something new," she told Jake one evening as they watched the sunset from their room at the facility. "Not fully alien, not human, but something that belongs to both worlds." "How do you feel about that?" Jake asked. "Excited," she said with a smile, "and a little scared, but mostly grateful that our child will grow up in a universe where anything is possible." When Zara went into labor, Jake was amazed at how different it was from what he expected. Instead of pain, Zara seemed to glow brighter with each contraction. The room filled with a warm, musical humming that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Dr. Rodriguez and her team monitored everything carefully, but they needn't have worried. The birth was unlike anything anyone had ever witnessed. When their daughter finally arrived, she was perfect, tiny, beautiful, and surrounded by a soft aurora of shifting colors. "She's gorgeous," Jake whispered, holding his daughter for the first time. The baby opened her eyes, and Jake saw that they were the same silver blue as her mother's, but with flecks of gold that seemed to move like tiny stars. The most incredible moment came when the alien queen arrived to meet her granddaughter. As soon as she entered the room, something amazing happened. The baby's aurora expanded, connecting with the queen's crystal-like energy, and suddenly everyone in the room could communicate without words. It wasn't telepathy exactly, it was something deeper. A direct sharing of emotions, thoughts, and understanding that transcended language entirely. "She is the bridge," the queen's voice echoed in everyone's mind, filled with wonder. "Not just between our worlds, but between all conscious beings who wish to understand each other." 3 months later, Jake stood in what had once been his boring apartment building, now converted into the first interdimensional embassy on Earth. The baby, whom they had named Luna, slept peacefully in Zara's arms, while dignitaries from both worlds discussed trade agreements and cultural exchanges. The electromagnetic field that Luna generated naturally had solved not just the communication problems between Earth and Zara's world, but had opened pathways to 12 other civilizations that had been trying to make contact for decades. Jake's official title was now Ambassador of First Contact, but he preferred to think of himself as Luna's father and Zara's partner. The three of them lived in a specially designed suite in the embassy, where Luna could grow up surrounded by beings from across the galaxy, all of whom saw her as a symbol of hope for peaceful cooperation between species. The most surprising development of all came when other human-alien couples began arriving at the embassy. It turned out that Luna's birth had somehow triggered similar pregnancies across the galaxy. Love really could transcend species barriers, and their daughter had made it biologically possible. "Did you ever imagine your life would turn out like this?" Zara asked Jake one evening as they watched Luna play with a visiting delegation of crystalline beings who communicated through color patterns. Jake laughed, thinking back to his days as a lonely radio telescope operator. "Never in a million years, but I wouldn't change any of it. Not even the scary parts. Especially not the scary parts," Jake said, pulling Zara close. "The scary parts led us to the beautiful parts." Luna looked up at them and giggled, her aurora dancing with happiness. In that moment, Jake realized that what had started as the most impossible situation imaginable had become the most natural thing in the world, a family that bridged the stars. The alien queen had been right when she first appeared in his control room months ago. Helping her daughter hadn't just saved Zara's life, it had changed the future of both their worlds forever. As he watched his daughter create rainbow,